My name's Taylor Rowan, and this is Confident Risks. Today, we're talking about execution over ideas, something that a lot of us struggle with, including myself. We kind of get stuck in that middle ground of, I've got this idea, now how do I execute it? Let's get started. Execution over ideas, something that all of us are going to struggle with. Maybe we have, maybe we're going to, but I know for myself, having this idea and then executing it is a very, very hard thing to do. And it's probably that la land that a lot of us are stuck in. We've had the idea, we've got the confidence, we're ready to do it now. And how do we get started? What's the execution process look like? Today's story, it's a great one. I'm excited for it. We all have gone through this, whether you were growing up as a kid in your family or whoever you grew up with, or now maybe you have kids and you struggle with this. But it's the drive home from work. You're done with your work day. Maybe you're done with your day at school, whatever it is. You're driving home and you walk into the front door. Maybe you and your wife walk in at the same time, and you look at the house, and the place is an absolute disaster. And when I say disaster, that means a lot of different things for a lot of different people. If I walk into my mother-in-law's house and it's a disaster, it means that, the house looks better than my house ever looks. Maybe she's got dust that she hasn't dusted for a while, or she's got the dogs that have come in and out. She's got a little bit of a dirty floor. But for others of you, like myself, you walk in and maybe you can't see the floor anymore. And that is something that we all will struggle with. We'll look at like, what's the next, how do we get this clean? So you look at your wife looks at you. She said, I had a long day. You said, no, I had the long day. Your kids have been playing video games all day. They had a really long day. So of course they can't do it now. And you go with this back and forth battle on who's going to clean up what. And it's at the end of the day, you're all struggling with maybe being tired or hungry. Your DoorDash hasn't shown up yet. How do we get this place clean? And you do that for 3, 4, 5, 6 days, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it's getting worse and worse. You maybe start on it, but you don't finish it. You start on one thing, and that leads to not doing another thing. It's that constant of who's going to do it, who is actually going to execute and take it. The best advice I have on this: if you want a clean house, invite people over. Pretty simple. If you want a clean house, invite people over. I went through this just this last week, and I can remember our house had been a disaster for a little bit, and I was thinking to myself, how do we get this place clean? So I told my wife, like, look, I'm inviting people over this afternoon to come hang out. And she says, really, with the house looking like this? She's like, I got stuff to do this afternoon. You're going to be on your own doing this. I said, fine, I'm inviting people over at 3 o'clock today. And she's like, you got a lot of work to do. But in order for me to get that done, I have to execute a plan. And that plan is, if I invite people over, that place is going to get clean. Some of you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. You're up. You've had your breakfast. You've done your morning routine. And maybe it's 10 o'clock. You got people coming over at 3. So what do? You get an extra coffee in you. You get the music turned up. You get zoned in, you focus on what you're doing, and you make it happen. You start in one room, you're cleaning. You go to the next room, you're cleaning. You look at your watch, you got an hour left. You keep cleaning. Okay, what are the stuff I really got to get done? And before you know it, it's 2:30, people are coming over at 3, and your house looks better than it's ever looked. Why did that happen? It's because you had a plan to execute. You forced yourself into a situation where it absolutely had to be done. All of us can relate to that. The same thing goes like a honey-do list. You're saying, okay, I've got all these little projects I got to get done. What do? You plan a party. You plan the party and you're going to get it done. Why? Because you have a time that you have to get it done by. You force yourself into situations where you absolutely have to get it done. I use this all the time. And I can go back to countless numbers. I'll tell you a few of the stories where I've done this, but I do this to myself all the time as I have to physically know, why am I doing this? And some of you are probably thinking to yourself, well, you should just want to have a clean house. You're right. You should want that. But some of us, it's not that easy. My brain is going 100 different directions all the time. And I know my wife's constantly doing stuff, constantly cleaning, constantly either making food, coming home from work. She's had a long day. She's trying to get the kids going somewhere. Maybe it's to school in the morning. I'm coming back from work. There's just always something going on. So we have to think to ourselves, how do we get it done? Well, if we have a plan in place and we know what we're doing, it's a lot easier to achieve that goal by that set time. I'm going down this alley. A lot of you can see where I'm already going. If you have an idea, if you have a business plan and you've thought about the idea for a while, you're thinking to yourself, man, this is a good idea. You've done the research. You've got the confidence built up. How do I take the next step? Well, let's take the last week's example. You're a contractor. You want to do bathroom remodels. Book your first job. And to you, just me saying that can bring some of you stress and anxiety. And it does. It does do that. You've done the research. You've done the backstory. You've done the law. You know what you're doing. Book your first one. I'll give you my story. When I first started, as you guys know, I sold my first container before I even went and picked one up. I did the research. I figured out what had to be done. When I got into the fire service, same thing. I had been doing the research. I knew what had to be done. I booked my first one. This podcast, great example. Last October 2024, I had the idea. I want to do this. I want to stop wasting my employees' time by me walking into their office and just brain dumping on them these ideas that some of them are just like, Taylor, this is great that you're just listening to yourself talk. Now I've got an audience to do it with. So I wanted to do that back in October. So I went on the social platforms. I got all of the ConfidentRisks. I booked all that. I got the URL. I started going down the steps to put myself in a position where I had to start. Now, things started getting a little bit busy at work, and I got pushed back a little bit, but in the back of my head, I always knew I wanted to start. So what was the goal? How was I going to do it? I needed to get the person in the office that was going to help push me. So I had a media guy. I knew, great one. Good sports video production. I knew I wanted to bring him on, brought him on. And then that forced me into doing what I'm doing right now. He could do the lighting, do the video, and he could do everything. It forced me into that position. Yes, he was going to do stuff for our company, but I knew in the back of my head that if I had him here, I had to start. I put myself in those situations. The same encouragement is going to everybody watching right now that has the idea or wants to execute something. Put a time on the calendar. Put a date on the calendar. This is the date I'm going to do this, and book your first job. By doing that, you are going to put yourself in a situation where you are now forced to get that done. Speaking about it, talking about it, this is what I want to do one day, so is fantastic. But actually putting the date on the calendar brings a sense of stress and anxiety, yes, but also excitement. And okay, this is what it's going to be. This is going to be the first date. I'm going to go get it. Putting the date on the calendar and executing that will do all of the small things that are needed leading up to that. Just like cleaning the house. I got people coming over at 3. I know what I have to get done. There's no guessing. I know this looks like crap. I know the kitchen doesn't look good. I know the living room doesn't look good. No one's going to my bedroom. I can throw everything in there, but at least everything in that main area is going to look good and it's going to bring much less stress to your life as you walk through the front door. The encouragement is that set a date. Here's what this also does. Yes, it gets you prepped. Yes, it gets you moving. It gets you rolling to your ideas. But here's what it also does. It separates the people that like to hear themselves talk from the people who take action. And here's what I mean by that. Great example. This last weekend, I'm at my daughter's soccer tournament, and I'm talking to a buddy of mine, and he was a ex-Division I football player. And we were sitting there talking about the glory days, of course, and we're talking about the 40 times. I don't know how it got brought up. I think his dad was there, and we're talking about 40 times. And we were talking to what was your 40 time on your pro day versus what mine was. And mine was like a 4.7. I'm thinking, I was like, man, that's a good time. His was also a 4.7. He was a tight end. And so we started thinking to each other like, hey, so do you think if we had to, we could go under 5 seconds now on a 40? And of course, we're both like, oh, there's no way. And I was talking to him. I was like, do you think you go 5.2? He's like, yeah, I think I go 5.2. Here's what happens during that time. If I would have told him, hey, man, yeah, I think you can go 5.2. You could definitely do it. He would feel that at that point, he has no reason to prove what he can do now. But by me saying, no, I don't think there's any way you could go 5.2, he now thinks to himself, I have to now show that I can do this. He wasn't given the glory or the pat on the back, so now he has to go prove me wrong. So what do? We set a date. Set the date. Now he's got to do it. Now he's got to put in the actual work, and then that's when we find out who was wrong, who was right. There are a lot of people who come up with ideas or say things, and they just like hearing themselves talk about them. They love people saying, oh, that's a fantastic idea. Oh, that's really good. Oh, man, you're really great. That's really smart. Some people like talking about those things just for those reactions, but they just like hearing themselves talk. You talk to them 6 months later. It's like, what happened? Did you started it? No, I didn't start it yet. I really haven't said anything. It was those are ideas. The reality of that was they loved people telling them that they can do it. That's maybe what they like, and that's fine if that's what people like. If you actually want to take action, though, you have to set your date. By just putting something out into the air of this is what I want to do, there is no mark to hit. I used to use the term all the time. I was kicking with my dad back when I was training, which was aim small, miss small. Aim big, miss big. And the truth behind that is this. If I'm kicking a field goal on an upright, and I'm, let's say, 40 yards out, and I'm aiming to hit the uprights and I miss the uprights, I was aiming too big. Now, if I'm standing there and I see people behind and I pick out somebody in the crowd behind the uprights and I'm trying to hit them in the forehead, my focus now is hitting that person in the forehead. I'm not even thinking about the uprights anymore. So when I go to kick that ball and I strike it, I'm watching the ball carry, and maybe I miss that person just a little bit, the ball's still sailing right down the middle. The same thing has to happen as we set goals. Okay, I'm going to start this podcast sometime soon. Well, if I'm going to miss that mark 3 or 4 years down the road from now, if I set the mark by the end of 2025, I'm going to have X number of podcasts shot. That's now a goal that I have specific that I have to aim for. I now know exactly what I have to do. I can put a plan together. Okay, I've got 4 weeks until I got to shoot my first one to meet this goal. What has to happen? And then your brain starts taking a different approach to things. Okay, now if I have to meet this date by this date, I've got to get X, Y, and Z done. I got to set up a spot to do this podcast. Oh shoot, I got to get all the lighting. I got to set these milestones, and it starts actually happening. By setting a date, something shifts. I can't tell you what it is. I don't know why or how it happens, but something shifts in your brain when you set a date. Even if it's just for yourself, you have to physically put it on a calendar or somewhere and maybe hold yourself accountable by telling other people. But when you set that date, something shifts and you now go from an idea to action. We talk about that contractor. You set a date. You say, you know what? I'm going to do this bathroom remodel. I've done the research. I know your friend's looking for a bathroom. You say, hey, I'm going to do your bathroom remodel. Maybe the profit margins aren't there at the beginning. Maybe you're doing this in parallel so you can do this. But you set the date. You say, hey, you're going to pay for all of the goods. You're going to pay for all of the material for this. And here's the small markup that I'm going to do. But you're going to actually do it. You're going to go through the process. By doing that, not only have you done the research leading up to it, but your brain takes a separate shift. I'm not sure what it is, but it shifts again, and you start going into action mode. Now you start putting yourself, okay, I'm in this person's bathroom doing this remodel. What's the next step? And your brain just starts going through the processes. By the time you get there to actually do it, you've done it 10, 15 times in your head, and something shifts with it. Set a date. Executing flawed plans can also still lead to valuable outcomes. Here's what I mean by that. Once I started the company, I realized very quickly that, I had a lot of ideas and I wanted to get them absolutely perfect in my head. But I started realizing that I didn't necessarily have to have everything perfect. If you spend too much time thinking about perfection, you're going to lose out on the valuable time from learning from your mistakes. Now, I'm trying to tread really lightly in this topic because I don't want to sound contradicting to what I've said in the past. But here's what I mean by that. I'll give you another example here at my own company is that we started implementing processes and inventory control. And we set aside a little room here at our facility for inventory control. We needed to have fabricators finish parts, bring them into inventory, get them inspected by our quality control, put them into inventory, and then have them go back out the door when they get installed and things. Well, in doing that, we started thinking about how's the layout of this room going to look? And I remember our quality manager coming in and saying, okay, we got it. So we started almost beating it. We were spending an hour, almost 2 hours, on how are we going to lay this room out? Now, yes, the layout of a room is very, very important. But at the end of the day, this room was probably 300 or 400 square feet. So spending that much time on how this place was going to be laid out, what we finally came to the conclusion was, look, man, let's just get this room set up. Let's start using it so that as we're using it, we'll find the flaws along the way. We'll figure out, okay, maybe this shelf needs to go here. Oh, this person comes through this door quite often. It needs to go out this way. So the idea here was, let's just put the room together. Let's get it set up how we think it needs to be. Don't spend any more time thinking about it. Let's let the process work out over the next few weeks. And then let's spend the time after we've executed the plan. Let's then figure out exactly how the place needs to get set up and then set it up in a perfect situation. And by doing that, we were able to do that. We had it set up for 2 or 3 weeks. People started coming in. Oh man, we really do need to switch this. And so we were able to make little small adjustments over time as we're working. Sometimes we can really beat things to death. So when I say execution over ideas, yes, that goes for starting your business, but also if you have started and you're starting to go down and implement different processes, we have to think through the process here a little bit more too. Are we actually developing solutions or are we beating dead horses? At some point, you've got to execute it. Execute it and start cleaning it up later. As your company grows and you're bringing more and more people on, you have more divisions. Like for us, we have our engineering department, we got our sales department, we got our fabrication department, quality control, inventory control. And the idea is you really want to go in there and make each one of them perfect systems, but it's not going to be. You put certain people in charge of each one of those divisions. And as an outsider yourself, sometimes as a business owner, you're going back in and saying, okay, this isn't working. Let's tweak this a little bit. Hey, let's tweak this a little bit. Whereas if you try to get something perfect right off the bat, a lot of times you're going to find small flaws anyways. There's not a big push or need to spend so much time up front trying to work out all the little details. That you can see goes back to starting your business as well. Sometimes you can't think of every little thing. There's some of you out there who are perfectionists. I want to get this absolutely right the first time. You're not going to. We've talked about this in many other episodes. I have tried multiple times coming up with a flawless implementation of a plan, and it does not work. 100 times out of 100 times, it does not work. You have to just start. To wrap all of this together, you will never have a perfect process right off the bat. Whether you've got a company now and you're trying to implement different processes, whether you're looking to start your company now, you will not ever get it perfect. The best solution that you guys have is set the date. Know when you're going to make the change, make the best executed effort that you can on that, and learn from your mistakes. It happens in every single scenario, whether you're starting up, whether you're in the company now, moving forward, you have to be okay with small failures. Now, I hate the word failure because I don't ever think there's a failure. You're going to learn from absolutely every single thing that you do. But there's some people who think that, okay, I screwed up on this, it's a failure. You will have the screw ups. You will have the letdowns or failures along the way. You have to be able to learn from them. You will not ever have a perfect process right off the bat. Set the date. Come up with the best educated plan and guess that you can, because sometimes that's what it is. Leave our customer with a better product than they had it and make it worth their time. By doing that, you are setting yourself up for success. In closing, if you want to clean house, just invite friends over. I hope you guys are able to take something from today, apply it to your everyday life. If you did, please hit the like, hit the subscribe button, follow us on social media, and until next time, stay sharp, stay resilient.